61. A big country may be compared to the lower part of a river. It is the converging point of the world. It is the female of the world. The female always overcomes the male by tranquility, and by tranquility she is underneath. A big state can take over a small state if it places itself below the small state, and the small state can take over a big state if it places itself below the big state. Thus some, by placing themselves below, take over others, and some, by being naturally low, take over other states. After all, what a big state wants is but to annex and hurt others, and what a small state wants is merely to join and serve others. Since both big and small states get what they want, the big state should place itself low. 62. Tao is the storehouse of all things. It is the good man's treasure and the bad man's refuge. Fine words can buy honor, and fine deeds can gain respect from others. Even if a man is bad, when has Tao rejected him? Therefore, on the occasion of crowning an emperor or installing the 3 ministers, rather than present 4 large pieces of jade preceded by teams of 4 horses, it is better to kneel and offer this Tao. Why did the ancients highly value this Tao? Did they not say, "Those who seek shall have it, and those who sin shall be freed"? For this reason it is valued by the world. 63. Act without action. Do without ado. Taste without tasting. Whether it is big or small, many or few, repay hatred with virtue. Prepare for the difficult while it is still easy. Deal with the big while it is still small. Difficult undertakings have always started with what is easy, and great undertakings have always started with what is small. Therefore the sage never strives for the great, and thereby the great is achieved. He who makes rash promises surely lacks faith. He who takes things too easily will surely encounter much difficulty. For this reason even the sage regards things as difficult, and therefore he encounters no difficulty. 64. What remains still is easy to hold. What is not yet manifest is easy to plan for. What is brittle is easy to crack. What is minute is easy to scatter. Deal with things before they appear. Put things in order before disorder arises. A tree as big as a man's embrace grows from a tiny shoot. A tower of 9 stories begins with a heap of earth. The journey of 1,000 leagues starts from where one stands. He who takes action fails. He who grasps things loses them. For this reason the sage takes no action and therefore does not fail. He grasps nothing and therefore does not lose anything. A sane man is sane in knowing what things he can spare, and not wishing what most people wish, and not reaching for things that seem rare. Therefore the sage desires to have no desire. He does not value rare treasures. He learns to be unlearned, and returns to what the multitude has missed, Tao. Thus he supports all things in their natural state, but does not take any action. 65. In ancient times those who practiced Tao well did not seek to enlighten people, but to make them ignorant. People are difficult to govern because they have too much knowledge. Therefore he who rules the state through knowledge is a robber of the state. He who rules a state not through knowledge is a blessing to the state. One who knows these 2 things also knows the standard. Always to know the standard is called profound and secret virtue. Virtue becomes deep and far-reaching, and with it all things return to their original state. Then complete harmony will be reached. 66. The great rivers and seas are kings of all mountain streams because they skillfully stay below them. That is why they can be their kings. Therefore, in order to be the superior of the people, one must, in the use of words, place himself below them, And in order to be ahead of the people, one must, in one's own person, follow them. Therefore the sage rejoices in praising him without getting tired of it. It is precisely because he does not compete that the world cannot compete with him. 67. All the world says that my Tao is great and does not seem to resemble the ordinary. It is precisely because it is great that it does not resemble the ordinary. If it did resemble, it would have been small for a long time. I have 3 treasures. Guard and keep them. The first is deep love, the second is frugality, and the third is not to dare to be ahead of the world. Because of deep love, one is courageous. Because of frugality, one is generous. Because of not daring to be ahead of the world, one becomes the leader of the world. Now, to be courageous by forsaking deep love, to be generous by forsaking frugality, and to be ahead of the world by forsaking following behind this is fatal. For deep love helps one to win in the case of attack, and to be firm in the case of defense. When heaven is to save a person, heaven will protect him through deep love. 68. A skillful leader of troops is not oppressive with his military strength. A skillful fighter does not become angry. A skillful conqueror does not compete with people. One who is skillful in using men puts himself below them. This is called the virtue of non-competing. This is called the strength to use men. This is called matching heaven, the highest principle of old. 69. The strategists say, I dare not take the offensive, but I take the defensive. I dare not advance an inch, but I retreat a foot. This means to march without formation, to stretch one's arm without showing it, to confront enemies without seeming to meet them, to hold weapons without seeming to have them. There is no greater disaster than to make light the enemy. Therefore, when armies are mobilized and issues joined, the man who is sorry over the fact will win. 70. My doctrines are easy to understand and very easy to practice, but none in the world can understand or practice them. My doctrines have a source, nature. My deeds have a master, Tao. It is because people do not understand this that they do not understand me. Few people know me, and therefore I am highly valued. Therefore the sage wears a coarse cloth on top and carries jade within his bosom. 71. To know that you do not know is the best. To pretend to know when you do not know is a disease. Only when one recognizes this disease as a disease can one be free from the disease. The sage is free from the disease. Because he recognizes this disease to be disease, he is free from it. 72. When the people do not fear what is dreadful, then what is greatly dreadful will fall upon them. Do not reduce the living space of their dwellings. Do not oppress their lives. It is because you do not oppress them that they are not oppressed. Therefore the sage knows himself, but does not show himself. He loves himself, but does not exalt himself. Therefore he rejects the one but accepts the other. 73. He who is brave and daring will be killed. He who is brave and not daring will live. Of these two, one is advantageous and one is harmful. Who knows why heaven dislikes what it dislikes? Even the sage considers it a difficult question. The way of heaven does not compete, and yet it skillfully achieves victory. It does not speak, and yet it skillfully responds to things. It comes to you without your invitation. It is not anxious about things, and yet it plans well. Heaven's net is indeed vast. Though its meshes are wide, it misses nothing. 74. The people are not afraid of death. Why, then, threaten them with death? Suppose the people are always afraid of death, and we can seize those who are vicious and kill them. Who would dare to do so? There is always the master executioner, heaven, who kills. To undertake executions for the master executioner is like hewing wood for the master carpenter. Whoever undertakes hewing wood for the master carpenter rarely escapes injuring his own hands. 75. The people starve because the ruler eats too much tax grain. Therefore they starve. They are difficult to rule because their ruler does too many things. Therefore they are difficult to rule. The people take death lightly because their ruler strives for life too vigorously. Therefore they take death lightly. It is only those who do not seek after life that excel in making life valuable. 76. When man is born, he is tender and weak. At death he is stiff and hard. All things, the grass as well as the trees, are tender and supple while alive. When dead, they are withered and dried. Therefore the stiff and the hard are companions of death. The tender and the weak are companions of life. Therefore, if the army is strong, it will not win. If a tree is stiff, it will break. The strong and the great are inferior, while the tender and the weak are superior. 77. Heaven's way is indeed like the bending of a bow. When the string is high, bring it down. When it is low, raise it up. When it is excessive, reduce it. When it is insufficient, supplement it. The way of heaven reduces whatever is excessive and supplements whatever is insufficient. The way of man is different. It reduces the insufficient to offer to the excessive. Who is able to have excess to offer to the world? Only the man of Tao. Therefore the sage acts, but does not rely on his own ability. He accomplishes his task, but does not claim credit for it. He has no desire to display his excellence. 78. There is nothing softer and weaker than water, and yet there is nothing better for attacking hard and strong things. For this reason there is no substitute for it. All the world knows that the weak overcomes the strong and the soft overcomes the hard, but none can practice it. Therefore the sage says, he who suffers disgrace for his country is called the lord of the land. He who takes upon himself the country's misfortunes becomes the king of the empire. Straight words seem to be their opposite. 79. To patch up great hatred is surely to leave some hatred behind. How can this be regarded as good? Therefore the sage keeps the left-hand portion, obligation, of a contract and does not blame the other party. Virtuous people attend to their left-hand portions, while those without virtue attend to other people's mistakes. The way of heaven has not favorites. It is always with the good man. 80. Let there be a small country with few people. Let there be 10 times and 100 times as many utensils. But let them not be used. Let the people value their lives highly and not migrate far. Even if there are ships and carriages, none will ride in them. Even if there are arrows and weapons, none will display them. Let the people again knot cords and use them in place of riding. Let them relish their food, beautify their clothing, be content with their homes, and delight in their customs. Though neighboring communities overlook one another and the crowing of cocks and the barking of dogs can be heard, yet the people there may grow old and die without ever visiting one another. 81. True words are not beautiful, beautiful words are not true. A good man does not argue, he who argues is not a good man. A wise man has no extensive knowledge. He who has extensive knowledge is not a wise man. The sage does not accumulate for himself. The more he uses for others, the more he possesses of his own. The way of heaven is to benefit others and not to injure. The way of the sage is to act but not to compete.